and over $500,000 on Upwork. Tammy is a dynamic business consultant. He has the ear of C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and leaders all over the world. He successfully advises them on strategy, marketing, and leadership. To date, Tammy has advised 65 clients on 190 projects across 35 industries in 15 countries. Tammy also serves on the board of several startups in an advisory role. He's a trusted market research expert of S&D Atlanta, a network of expert professionals that support the growth and scale of entrepreneurial ventures across Africa and North America. Tammy is a global traveler. He has lived and conducted business across various metros in Africa, Europe, North America, including London, New York, Boston, Dallas, Atlanta, and also Johannesburg. Tammy delivers keynote speeches, workshops, and training sessions to organizations, teaching them on how to harness data to spark disruptive, transformative changes and achieving industry-leading success. On that note, we'll play just a short video just to get to know him a little bit more. Thamsanqa, over to you.
All right, thanks for the introduction. And I'll say just before I play this video, thank you guys for coming through. I know you could be doing anything. It's a Saturday evening. Pretty sure some of you might have created some plans, but I'm just glad you came here to learn. So I'm going to share a bit of knowledge that I have gained through utilizing Upwork. Like we said here, please feel free to interject at any point when we go along through this presentation. You know, ask me anything you want to know. I'm just here to share some knowledge and hopefully have a fluid discussion. So feel free, open up. I'm going to share this video. This video is actually something that I have, as you heard from the introduction. I'm actually someone who started off freelancing. And occasionally I still get a lot of clients through Upwork, a lot of leads through Upwork because of how the algorithm is set up when you're top rated. And so what I'm going to share with you is a video that I have on the platform. And I'm sharing it not just as an introductory video, but as something that I think you should emulate. A lot of clients have referenced this video whenever they reach out to me and they get a well-rounded view. Instead of just having a profile that doesn't have any video attached to it, this actually helps. So let's go ahead and share that, and then we'll get into the topic of the day. Hi, my name is Tammy and I'm a market research consultant. Market research is a concerted effort at understanding the business environment within which an organization operates. This could include understanding the competitors, understanding the product trends in the industry, or maybe understanding certain regulatory and technological impacts that could have an effect on the business. One thing to understand is that market research is not marketing. Marketing is concerned with brand promotion and brand awareness. Market research is something that you have to do before you begin your marketing activities. Market research can help your business in a couple of ways. Firstly, if you're an entrepreneur looking to understand the viability of your business idea, market research will help you understand whether or not you should move forward with that idea. Secondly, if you're a larger corporation looking to launch new products and services in expansion markets, market research will help you understand whether or not you should move forward with those plans and which locations will be best suited for them. Companies enjoy working with me because I'm very passionate about what I do. I provide them with a personalized service. Whether I'm working with a pre-seed startup or a Fortune 500 company, I provide the same level of attention, detail, and time as I would working with a larger organization. My journey started in the legal space where I was working in mergers and acquisitions, but I was always interested in the business side of things. And so after I did my business degree, I began doing mergers and acquisitions in the commercial space, which is something that I was more passionate about. Having worked with some of the world's leading market research and consulting firms, I have depth of expertise across 35 plus different industries. They span healthcare, pharmaceuticals, transportation, entertainment, finance, technology, and a whole host of other industries. I've been consistently ranked in the top 1% of global talent, providing independent market research. If you'd like to gain a deeper understanding of the business environment within which you operate, as well as how to win in your industry, feel free to book a free consultation on my website, dateadvice.org.
Thank you so much, Thamsanqa, for that. As you guys know, the session is on how to build a global brand. And I think from that video, we picked a few points about storytelling, about how to position your brand. So hopefully you guys um, took notes, and I think we'll put that video up we'll embed that link to his video on our website. So on that note, let's get into the gist of today's session. Tamsanga, can you please give us some background about yourself, about your career? When did you start, and how did you transition from studying law in South Africa to now having a successful research business in the US? So just give us a little bit background into that.
All right, perfect. So, as you've heard, I actually lived in South Africa for a while. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, but I lived in South Africa for about 6 years, and I studied at Vet. So I lived in Joburg, I lived in Braamfontein, I lived in that area where a lot of students are. And so I studied law there. I started studying of Bachelor of Arts, and then I went and studied my Bachelor of Laws, and then I practiced actually in Melrose Art for a while as an attorney. But when I was doing legal work, a lot of the time I was very interested in the why behind certain contracts that we're drafting, right? You always hear companies merging with this one, but I never really quite understood why that was happening. And I always had an interest in the business side of things. So, after having, I wouldn't say wasted, but I spent a lot of time studying law, but I didn't really quite enjoy the practice of it all. So I decided to move into the business space. And from there, I did a bit of business back in Zimbabwe, where I was doing construction, low cost housing, that sort of thing. And that's when I realized that the law degree didn't quite help in trying to formulate a business. Right? So I realized I didn't know anything about business at that point. So I was trying to figure out a way to learn more about business, and I started looking out for uh, business schools that I could attend so that I can get some of that education behind me. And when I was looking for business schools, what then happened is that I applied, and apparently, when you apply for a business school, what you'll get is you'll get a lot of people reach back out to you. So there's a school that was in Boston. I ended up going to that school in Boston, and they reached out. I saw their ads on CNN actually. They started reaching out quite a bit. And when I recognized who was reaching out and I see their ad, I started to think to myself, maybe I should attend this business school. That's how I came to study business in Boston. And they were offering this innovative curriculum where they say, listen, we'll help you apply the knowledge from the business school with innovative companies like Ferrari, Airbnb, etc. as you're studying, because they had relationships with these companies. And so that's how I got into studying business. Right. So now fast forward, I got into the business school in Boston, but this business school had a couple of different campuses across London, Europe, and San Fran, etc. So I started working at a consulting firm in Boston where this business school was located, and that's really where I got the chops to start studying, to start working in market research. Now, fast forward, after the pandemic happened, I lost that job. And I began trying to figure out, well, I've got this business experience, I've got a lot of market research experience. What should I do with these skills? What are some of the things that I could start putting together to try to survive, really? And that's when I started doing business as a freelancer. I started off freelancing on Upwork. I got a few reviews under my belt. And as you know, the algorithm starts to favor you. The more work you do, the more hours you spend on the platform, etc. And as the business became successful, I opened it up into an agency, and that's how I have the business today. So today I'm going to be trying to share with you a bit of insight into how we can continue to build out our individual freelance businesses and form up agencies using those tools that I've learned along the way.
Okay, no, thanks a lot, Tammy. So regarding that, I think you touched a little bit on that, but then I want you to just get into a little bit more depth. So what really inspired you to start data advice market research? Can you maybe shed a little bit more light regarding that?
Yeah, I think, for me, it came to a point where I was unemployed. I didn't have any money, and I found myself in a foreign country. And so you can imagine, you're miles away from home. You don't have any sort of income. I really had to figure out what was going on. And it was dead in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody was sitting at home. We really didn't have much to do, and that forced me to think about what I had been doing all along. I'd been caught up in the red race of a 9 to 5, and I wasn't really progressing much in my career, and I wasn't achieving the goals that I had set for myself as a younger person. And so what I decided to do was to figure out how can I put the skills that I have together to form my own thing. And I actually found this out on YouTube. Someone had posted something on about Upwork on YouTube, on a YouTube video. And so that's when I began to do some freelance work. I remember the first job that I got was someone who just needed some kind of list of companies, so some kind of lead generation work. And I said to myself, let me try this out, even though it's outside the purview of my current scope of skills. And as soon as I saw that first $20 come in, I said, well, this is it. This is probably where I'm going to find some income. And so I started doing that continuously for a period of about six months. And I really didn't know that this was going to become a business, right? The first year that I started freelancing, I think I made about 36,000. And then from there, in the second year, I made about 80,000. Then I said, okay, this seems to be something that I haven't had a job in 2 years. It seems to be something that is consistently bringing income. What should I do to formalize this structure and make it something that I survive off of? And so that was the beginning of the firm that I have now. So fast forward now, I've worked with a lot of different brands that include Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft. I recently got a partnership with Google. We're building some software in the market research space right now. And there are a few other companies like Canva, etc., that I've worked with through the platform that have helped me build out my business. So that's how the business started.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. So what I'm getting from your explanation is that you started quite small. So maybe let's tap into speaking about mindset, because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with when they're starting freelancing or they want to start a business. So maybe you can shed light in terms of like what kind of mindset is required to build like a global business, or like what really inspired you to think globally about building a business? You mentioned that you're working with Fortune 500 companies and you have all these projects you've worked on across the globe. So what kind of mindset is required to build such a global business or brand? Maybe you can shed light on that.
Yeah, I think I'll start with saying that we aren't exposed to so many opportunities as Africans, and that's where I think the conversation starts. The idea is exposure. I think the world has become increasingly flat now to a point where you can see what's happening on one side of the world in a matter of seconds, right? So you can open up your phone and see exactly what's going on, even live, right? In terms of events that are changing the world, and I think that's where we start. It's an exposure thing. For me, I got exposed to the world because I went into a business school that was international, and there were 45 different nationalities in one classroom. So I would have someone literally from Colombia as my classmate, someone from the Netherlands. I always joke that I have a bed anywhere in the world because I've studied with people and worked with people that are all over. So that for me was the exposure aspect is what is the limiting factor. And I think now we need to be more deliberate in what we consume so that we can open up our mindsets to the possibility of having a global brand. So that's the first thing that I'd like to highlight, right? And the second thing that I'd like to highlight is the fact that if you look at a platform like Upwork, it's a global platform. So in other words, you're able to work with someone from the Middle East. I've got inquiries from people in China. The strangest things have happened. People from the Middle East. I see a lot of people on YouTube talking about how to earn US dollars living in South Africa, working with clients in the USA. So that alone helped me understand, cement that even further, that it's possible to work with clients all over the world, just based off the fact that there are platforms that are enabling or facilitating some of this. The research that I did showed that there were at least 64 million people in the US alone who were freelancing on Upwork in 2023. They make about 38% of the global workforce, and they contribute about 1.8 trillion to the GDP, right? And there are 854,000 businesses on Upwork today. These businesses are dispersed. They are all over the place. And so once you start to connect the dots and realize that all of those businesses that are around the world have a need that we can serve, regardless of where our location is, then you realize that the world is actually a very small place. So the mindset that I would encourage you to have is that it's possible to provide a service as an individual based out of South Africa, based out of Zimbabwe, based out of Botswana, based out of Nigeria, Kenya, to a number of companies in different countries. So the mindset there is, do not confine yourself to a small space. It's a global environment. Your competitors are no longer the neighbor next door or someone that you're working with. It's something that we should drill down and really get to understand that the world is flat as we know it today.
Okay, no, thanks a lot. So I want you to touch on maybe the key elements that form the foundation of a successful brand. Like, what are the key factors to consider when building a globally relevant brand? Because you find that there's a lot of fluff out there. If you search maybe on YouTube, you find a lot of people like, mention fluff things. I want you maybe to touch on things that are more significant and more things that actually drive business. So what are some of the key elements you think would form like a strong foundation for a successful global brand?
Yeah, you're asking this question at a right time, because yesterday I was with a company. You mentioned it. It's called Sandbox. It's based out of Kenya, but they just recently expanded into Atlanta, which is where I'm based, and they also expanded into Germany. And this company essentially is globalizing, right? They're opening up. They'll have a branch very soon in South Africa as well. So already we're thinking globally, talking about the Sandbox. And we had their launch yesterday in Atlanta, and it was encouraging to see or hear some of the stories of the entrepreneurs that they've mentored, because it's sort of an incubator. And there's a lady there her name was Wandia. She's from Kenya, and she's opened 27 stores in Kenya, but she opened a store in California recently, right? And when we're talking about building out a global brand, witnessing stuff like that is actually encouraging, because we're seeing that happen in real time. And what I'm going to provide you now are some of the steps that can be taken to do that, because I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think anyone who is doing this stuff or myself is special in any way. There are steps that I've taken, and I'm going to share with you a couple of those right now over this call. So I took down a few notes. So if you see my eyes wandering around, that I'm reading out those steps, because it's actually a brand strategy that I got from someone who has advised a lot of executives, whether we're talking about Apple, whether we're talking about IBM. She's advised a lot of tech execs, and I actually hired her through Upwork, and she gave me a brand strategy that I've utilized to create a global brand. And I want to also, as a cautionary note, just mention that when we talk about global brand, you don't have to have 100,000 followers on Instagram, on Twitter, etc., to build that global brand. Like I'm saying, I have a small following on all these social media platforms, but I work with companies all over the world. And so the brand that I'm carrying into those conversations is the global brand. It's not necessarily the fact that you have all these people following you, etc. No, it's your reach. That's what I'm speaking to here. So how do you establish that reach? The first thing you want to do is, the reason I mentioned the Kenya lady is because she's solving for a fashion issue in Kenya, and she's solving for it over here. So you want to drill, so that means the target audience is the same, right? So you want to drill down on the target audience, really, really niche down. I'm not talking about general idea of who you're serving as a freelancer or as a business, etc. I'm really here speaking to understanding who benefits the most from the product that you're offering. Understand their psychographic profile. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? What do they live? You almost have to be able to feel their pain points when you get to understand the person who we are solving for at an intimate level. Because as entrepreneurs, fundamentally what we're doing is we're solving for problems, right? So if you find that you can solve an expensive problem, you make a lot of money. Now, niche down on that target audience. Who is it that you're serving? Understand the demographic profile as well, age, etc. Really get an intimate understanding of that, because if you're a jack of all trades, you won't be able to be compelling enough to a prospective buyer. So that's the first thing I'll say. Now, once you understand that, you craft a unique selling value proposition.
And I want to share with you a template that you can use, and we'll disseminate this to the people on the call at the end of this discussion. But have a value prop. And if you're familiar with the company HubSpot, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with HubSpot. But if you're not familiar, HubSpot is a company based out of Boston. Their marketing, their CRM, etc. They do a lot of that. They have a lot of resources, and I use this a lot for my clients. Right, this is a template, which is a value prop template, and you'll see here that this template will show you the needs, the wants, the fears of your customer, the benefits from that they'll get from your product, what features they'll get from your product, the experiences that they'll get from your product. And so we'll share this with you. It will help you really understand or drill down that unique selling value proposition if you haven't honed in already. That's the second thing that I'll say you need to do, right? Really build out what that value prop is. Now that you've identified who the target audience is, identify what your product can do for them. Now, we're talking about building a global brand here, so there's got to be some outreach of some sort, right? Create some talking points and pillars for use across various marketing channels. Now, how are you going to communicate that value is what I'm getting at here. You want to be able to create pillars. So, for example, with my business is a market research business. And if you have the market research, then you can boost sales for an organization, because now you understand how to, for example, create new innovative products or a new product line that you previously didn't know, or serve an underserved market, etc. So the pillar that I'm talking about there is the sales pillar. You can create new sales, right? So you need to create different pillars. The other pillar that I might have would be innovation, right? If I'm doing market research and I've got R&D, there's innovation. So all those pillars, you create content underneath those pillars. I'm trying to explain this as clear as possible. So if you've got a sales pillar, create content that speaks to how your product helps clients increase sales. And this can be anything, right? I'm just using an example that I have, but basically those will be, and they don't have to be many, 3 or 4, but you can create various types of marketing that you can put into your LinkedIn, to your newsletter, to your case studies, onto your website, etc. Right? That's you begin to create some thought leadership, some content, some, whether it's video, audio, whatever the case may be, written. You start to create that underneath those pillars. And then the fourth thing I would suggest you do is then you begin to position your brand, right? And what I mean by position your brand is that you now begin to set up KPIs. What do I want to achieve by doing this exercise of branding? Because building a global brand can be an awareness thing. It can be a conversion thing where you want sales. So there could be different objectives, but what are your objectives in doing that, right? Are you doing it to ultimately, obviously, want to make money? So you're doing it to get paid, right? You're not just doing it for the sake of it. But there are other aspects to brand building as well. You just want to be known first before you start building that. So in those phases, you want to identify what those KPIs are as you're building that brand. You want to identify how regularly you're going to be posting, because you need to maintain consistency, right? So the posting schedule is going to be there. You have to, I can't emphasize this enough, the importance of measurement, volume, time, and consistency. So you want to be able to measure all of these different things. Are you being successful? What's your engagement strategy? You want to start position your webinar topics. If you're going to be offering webinars, what are those topics going to be? Pre-record them, prepare, practice. But remember, we're preparing to execute here. So these are the steps that you're taking. You want to be able to understand the call to action that you're going to be using, right? Are you going to be using a click here, sign up for this link, etc.? You want to be able to understand what you're going to do across different platforms for that. You want to create downloadable resources, right? You want to, if, for example, on my website, there's a competitor checkup quiz. The competitor checkup quiz is something that I give to clients for free. If you visit my website, dataadvice.io, you'll see that there's an option to fill in some information. And if you fill in that information, you'll get a quiz. The quiz is going to help you figure out where you are in terms of understanding your competitors. So you can think of any other resource that you can add onto your website. These are things that will get those people to sign up or as leads, etc. and you can start to review that, right? So that's another aspect you want to create. Remember, we're still in the positioning phase here. You want to research some events that you go to, and we're not just talking about local events, etc. If you have capacity to travel to different regions of the country, I understand that you're building a global brand. You just talked about being flat, the world is flat. So there are some events that can be even international. Look at webinars that are being held for free in these different markets. Attend those, meet new people. I would say be heavily networked. Be heavily networked. These days we have LinkedIn, we have social media, we have Instagram. I know Polisi through a friend who met her through social media, right? So these are the things that show that it's an interconnected world. Start to utilize those offline and online channels to meet these people, right? And the goal is going to be to begin then to measure those KPIs at the end of the day. What has been working after you've positioned, you execute all of those things, right? And measure what has been working. Did I reach the goals of brand awareness that I had? Did I reach the revenue targets that I had? And all those things that didn't work, maybe your lead magnet didn't work that you were using like as a downloadable resource. It didn't work. If it didn't work, try something else. But the important thing is you're measuring, you're seeing what's working, what's not. And those are the steps that I've taken and I've done consistently. I think if you look at my LinkedIn, I started posting, there were like 3-4 people just like liking the stuff that I was doing, colleagues, etc. You always have those people in your corner who have known you for a while. But over time, you want to move from people just having that brand awareness to people having that brand comprehension, where they now understand your brand to a point where they now have consideration, where they're saying, okay, we might consider doing business with this person, to a point where they now engage with your brand and start maybe responding, start saying, this is great information, etc., up until a point where you close that sale. So it's a funnel. People are going to take a long time to get to understand who you are. But these are steps that you can begin to take today to figure out how you can build out your brand, not just within the region that you're located in, but also globally. Because remember, I keep emphasizing that you can export your brand for wherever you are across different markets in the world.
Thanks a lot, Tamsang. I think it's time to open up the floor and get some questions. I'm seeing some raised hands. Let's start engaging, guys. Just remember, this is not a formal suit and tie event. So try and relax and engage. And yeah, we're here to learn from each other. So yeah, let's hear the questions. The first one, Maro Bang. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Can you shoot your question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi,
Good
hi.
evening.
Yes, how are
Yes.
you?
Hi.
Good, thanks. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Well, good, thanks. Please continue.
I'm so sorry. It was just a mistake. I wasn't even aware we stand. So sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Didn't you pick up
Anyway,
anything that he spoke on that you'd want to engage in?
not at the moment. I'm trying to process everything. But anyway, I think it was good for me to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Thanks a lot. Vusi, go ahead and unmute your mic.
All right. Good evening. Good afternoon to you, Tamsangma. Thanks for the session. My questions are twofold. One is, what tools do you use to gather this market research? Like 5 top tools. And two, do you use data at the start of your market research, or do you just obviously use it to kind of elaborate the fact that, okay, in a specific market such as sports, for interest sake, this is the way sports is going, and this is the data I have to prove that. And then how do you then build that into a proposal for a client?
Did you get that? Maybe you can just touch on that.
Yeah. So, what tools do I use for research? I suppose it depends for what purpose, right? So, and I'm trying to understand the angle from which you're asking, because there are industry association reports that I'll look at when I'm conducting market research for a specific industry. There's just open web searches that I can use, like Google, etc. But then there are some databases that are paid that you have to get to access information about a specific market that has been compiled by analysts, etc. There could be opportunities to look at government resources, international bodies, etc. Right. So I want to be as helpful as possible to your concern, because that's research that I would do for a client. But I don't know what you'll be researching, because if you're researching, a brand on social media and understanding how many times it's been mentioned, whether it's been mentioned negatively or positively, I would use something like a brand watch or like a social mention, right? So there are different tools for different purposes of research. So yeah, that's what I would say to that. In terms of using data to create a proposal, I think the most important thing I would say, and this is to everyone generally, is before you even meet a client, you need to nail down your discovery call framework, so that when you get into that call, before you even have a conversation with that client, you know what you're going to ask them, and you've already done a lot of research behind that client, where they went to school. You want to know where they live. You want to know the industry that they are in. You want to know how it's growing, what trends are in that space, etc. You want to know what are the pain points or challenges that are faced by people in that industry, and how you can provide a service that helps. So that makes you all the more of an expert whenever you hop on the call, because you've done your research, you've prepared. And when you create your proposal, you're not creating it from a lay person's perspective, but you're creating a proposal that already has a lot of research behind it, that makes you even more of an expert in the eyes of the client, and then you'll sign more deals doing that. It also will help you add value to the client, because if you've done this research already, and then the client comes back to you and says, okay, I want you to research this industry, and then you come back with the research that you probably would have done, or they would have done themselves, or something that you would have done prior to even getting onto that call, then at that point, you're not adding value to the client. So that's, I think, my take on that question.
Thanks a lot, Samsung. Vusi, do you still have a follow-up question, or you're covered?
Yeah, thank you very much, Samsung. I'm covered there. I think my my initial obviously was just how do you apply this to sports, but I think you've covered how that can apply to any industry, at least in terms of tooling and also the data that you can gather for a proposal. I think my last, and I think if it's a follow-up, how do you price this, at least in terms of the proposal, or obviously number one, the consultation fee, two, is it a greenfield project, or is it a pain point? How do you price this at the level where the client now sees the value that you're providing, and is able to obviously I don't know retain you're able to retain that as a client, yeah, because it's pricing data stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think a lot of freelancers struggle with pricing, right? So I don't think you should price a proposal. That's number one. Unless you're at a point where you're an expert vetted freelancer or something like that, I don't think you should be pricing a proposal, right? So give your time freely to understand the client's need through a discovery call, and speak to them. Just try to understand what their pain points are in that discovery call. Like I said, the discovery call framework has to be nailed down, and you ask them the right questions there. If you diagnose appropriately, then you can create a proposal that is more effective and likely to win, as opposed to trying to charge them upfront. It looks like a money grab. It's just not the right way to go about it. The actual project itself, there are different ways that freelancers could price. When you're starting off, you could price at an hourly rate, an affordable hourly rate, depending on the need, right? So, and I'll talk to the need soon, but price at an hourly rate, that is affordable. That's what you want to do, because especially initially if you're creating a portfolio and you haven't had any experience under your belt, you probably work for crumbs. But that's not to say that you don't know your own value. It's just a matter of you getting your foot through the door so that you can get a few testimonials. That way, that social proof can be used to get new clients. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I'd say, as you continue to grow, figure out an appropriate price. Usually the market will tell you if you're pricing yourself out of the market, you won't get any work through overcharging. But look at your competitors in your niche. What are they doing? How are they pricing it out? Where their sort of ballpark figures. And you can even ask clients who've hired other people or potential targets. Hey, listen, when you previously worked with other people in this niche, how has the price been like? I'll tell you this: when I was working as a consultant in Boston, the reports that they would charge would be like 300,000-400,000, but they would pay us about $20 per hour. And the most value that they would gain from that research would be, in the US is very expensive, by the way. So $20 per hour is not a lot of money. I'll just say that you can't even afford your rent $20 per hour. So then you realize that the value there that you're working for and providing a lot of value, but you're being paid peanuts. So what I'm getting at is after you've done hourly pricing at an affordable rate, speaking to other people, having that insight here, you'll be able to price according to what the market dictates. The third pricing model would be a value-based pricing model where you look at how much value you're bringing onto the client. So, for example, if you're going to do a project that is going to give you, or rather, going to give the client 100,000 in value, right? You can't come in and charge 2,000 because that way, if you do that, you're no longer basically, you're kind of cheating yourself, right? So your value-based pricing considers the value that you're going to provide to the client and utilizing that as a baseline for your pricing, right? So if, for example, it would cost them 30,000 to onboard a client, it's going to cost them 20,000 to train up that client. I mean that employee, and then it's going to cost them an annual salary of, I don't know, 75,000. That's already 100 and something thousand in value that they're just coming to you directly. No need for onboarding, no need for all of that, and you just coming in, do the work, and you're out of there. So that one is a different way of pricing as well, which is considered a value-based pricing model. So those are, I think, are the different strategies that you can use.
Okay.
So valuable. Yeah. Thank you very much. I can see how that can apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vusi. Thank you, Tamsanga. Can I get a lady to ask a question? Ladies, can we have one of you guys jump on and ask a question? Anyone, guys, really, about building a global brand, about market research. We have an expert here. You don't get these opportunities. So please, guys, jump in. Can I get one lady to just jump in and ask a question?
Oh, I don't really have a question. Hi guys. So as I mentioned earlier that I've been freelancing, right? I've been teaching people how to freelance. I had Tamsanga mentioning, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. I had you mention that exposure is a problem, and this is something that I feel like we lack as South African people. When I started telling people about Upwork, they were like, "What's that?" And I hearing you saying it and hearing the things that I've been teaching people, you mentioning them, like, damn, I've been doing this right. And sometimes I used to like doubt my teachings and the way I do things. And you saying it just shows that I've been doing it correctly. And I'm motivated to to do it even more than what I've been doing. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I expect Americans to fail to pronounce my name, not South Africans. I'm joking.
Hey.
I'm joking with you. I'm joking with you. But yeah, no, they don't know what it means over here. But yeah, you're right. Right, a lot of people just don't quite understand how much of contributor the gig economy is. And this is why I mentioned at the top of the poll that I think I said 64 million Americans are doing this work. And some of them are doing it part-time, some of them are doing it full-time, but there is a growing economy where if you're looking at problems like unemployment that are plaguing countries like most African countries, to be honest with you, where unemployment rates over anywhere between 30 to 90%, there's opportunity in global organizations where you can take advantage of the vacancies or the needs or the pain points of the individuals who aren't necessarily willing to hire full-time people, but like in offshore labor or talent in various regions. And they have the incentive to do that because, like I mentioned, as a researcher, I was earning $20 per hour. There's arbitrage opportunities for them that they also take advantage of. They want to work with people, for example, in Kenya, in Morocco, etc. The American companies, German companies, European companies, wherever in the world, they want to take advantage of that. So there's a huge opportunity in building out your brand and going after the jobs that are available in these different regions. That's why I look at building a global brand in the context of access, not social media followings and things of that nature. It's just the access that you have to different countries.
That's a good point that you mentioned because a lot of advice, like I said, there's a lot of fluff out there that talks about building followings and all that stuff. So thank you so much for your insight. We have one more hand that's up. Rainbow, can you please just jump in? Sorry, I can't pronounce your whole name. Please just jump in and ask your question.
Good evening and good afternoon, Tammy. I just wanted to ask, I'm not sure if I'm audible.
You are.
You
Okay.
are called.
I just want to ask, I think maybe I might be one of the very few that are not in Upwork or are not familiar with working in Upwork. So my question was, how does one then identify the skill that they might potentially have in order to then use it in terms of like building a global brand? For example, I am a tutor at the University of Johannesburg, and I have obviously just tried to use my skills to tutor some of the high school students. However, I haven't really gotten to a point whereby I feel comfortable in then selling my skills per se in Upwork, for example. So how does one identify or rather how does one maximize their skills that they have in order for them to attract the right clientele?
So what do you tutor, just out of curiosity?
Tutoring maths.
Okay. So what I would suggest in a situation like this, you're a tutor, you're tutoring mathematics, and you want to get onto Upwork. The number one thing that I would say is package this as a course of some sort, right? So there's a way that you can probably digitize this. So maybe video recordings. There are things like what's this? EMS, LMS that is used for Teachable, like things like Teachable, etc. Right? You can package the curriculum that you currently have into video sessions. You can and then use that as sort of like a way of advertising your capabilities, right, or what you do, etc. And then you can put that on Upwork, similar to the video that I showed you at the top of the presentation, right? That would be one way to package it. I would suggest even maybe putting a portfolio together. I was showing Polisi earlier on that there's a portfolio that I normally share with clients, and I didn't think that I was going to have to share this, but I'll share it with you. But something like this that shows the highlights. So let me just show you. Create something like this.
I don't think we can see it. Can you guys see it?
I'm sharing, sorry.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right, so this is a portfolio that I have. This is just about what I do, right? So for you, it would be I don't know what you would call the tutoring business, but you just show people that, and then it's just a bit about yourself, etc. This is what I think is really, really helpful. Something like this that showcases what you teach in mathematics, what are some of the curricula that you did teach etc. Because all of this is really about pushing the message forward that you're a tutor who's credible because you've been doing it already. I don't think that you should be shy or coy about it because you're actually already doing it. What you might have is kind of some kind of imposter syndrome where you're feeling like I'm not valuable enough or like I'm not credible enough to be doing it, but you already are doing it. So you just want to maybe see it in a written format somewhere in your portfolio and package it in a way that people will be attracted to it, and you'll be surprised the response that you get from that. So I'll say it's really for you a way. How do you communicate the skill that you currently have? Because you have the skill, you're currently doing it, but how do you communicate? And if you do, when you do communicate it, how then do you get that first client? And I think the way to do it is to uh, come through and talk to them with that discovery call framework, showcase what you've already put together through something like a teachable or something like a portfolio like this. The digital aspect as well is a very scalable option for you. Instead of you teaching in person, if you're afraid of just standing in front of people, if you're afraid of doing this sort of interactive activity, people can simply purchase the course, right? It's already available online. It's something that you don't have to facilitate or continue to do all the time. It's already out there. So I think that would be my roundabout way of answering that question. Does it help? Let me know if you need any more clarification.
No, definitely it does help. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tammy. Thanks a lot, Rambo. So we are pressed on time. Just before you go, I just wanted you to touch on like the different business cultures in each regions you've done business in, because I usually find that when I interact with international clients, they do have like different cultural, I don't know, ways of working. That might be a challenge for maybe someone who's based here in South Africa and hasn't interacted with anyone who's maybe in Russia or China or whatever. So maybe just touch a little bit before we run out of time. Can you touch on like the different business cultures in the world basically?
Yeah, what's funny is there's this company, you guys are probably familiar with WeWork. So WeWork was building locations across the world and they expanded into Japan. And as you know, Japan is an area where um, they take off their shoes most of the time when they enter indoor spaces. They'll take off their shoes, leave them at the door, just as a sign of respect and cleanliness. So WeWork built out entire offices in Japan without regard to the culture of Japan. And they built the offices the same that they built them in other international markets without understanding that nuance. And so people in Japan were just uncomfortable with the setup because it didn't allow for them to take off their shoes, and they lost clients because of that. People weren't going to that co-working space just because of that. So you've put in millions of dollars building out all these different offices, but you fail to understand the culture. So the reason I'm telling that story is because as I've done a lot of business in different regions, culture is very important, right? If you look at, I was talking to my friend Fusani, he was telling me that, having seen what's going on in the UK versus America, America is very aggressive. People just want to do business. A super capitalistic society, and people want to do business today, there and there. It's a transaction. There's no relationship behind it. Whereas people in the United Kingdom, if you go to London, Londoners are more so like, I want to understand who you are, what do you do, etc. So that already is a difference in terms of relationship versus the transactional nature of the different regions. So you want to be able to understand the pace that you need to be working at. Right now, the quickest place where the pace of business is fast is Dubai. I'll say the Middle East, not specifically Dubai. It's because Dubai is quickly overtaking Silicon Valley as a tech hub. But that area, that region over there, has become a very I would say strong business hub, and it's overtaking the ethic that we see in America. Then comes America, I would say maybe Asia. And those guys also move at a very quick pace. But in other regions like Europe and Africa, I've seen that it's a bit slower. People take their time to read proposals and don't get a response to an email 3 weeks, etc., etc. But that's just how the culture is. And then there's an issue of communication. I would say communication is different. For example, in Africa mostly, and I'll say in the Middle East, WhatsApp is an accepted form of communication in terms of doing business. A lot of people do business on WhatsApp. But here in America, people don't even know what WhatsApp is, right? They're conscientized, but they only they look at it as an app where they talk to their international friends or people who are not in the USA. So that's another distinguishing factor. So how do you communicate with clients? How do you communicate with people? What are the different forms of communication that are acceptable? WhatsApp is actually more preferred in the Middle East than email. Right? And we're finding that out as we're doing more expansion into the Middle East and trying to reach out to people by email. They don't open emails. So I think that's another distinction that I'm seeing. Work ethic is different as well. I've seen that other clients in one region or the other tend to have higher um, um, expectations of deliverables and client output. So if you go to the US, for example, a lot of the clients here, they are used to it's a service-based economy, and so there are a lot of services that have benchmarked the best standards. And so if you come in as a research expert or whatever it is and you're providing a service, they expect a higher caliber of work as opposed to other economies that don't necessarily have that. So those are some of the differences that I've seen in terms of business culture. But what that ultimately means for us is that we need to tailor our approaches whenever we work in these different regions and understand those nuances. How can we communicate better? I've actually had to find someone who's a Jordanian talking to people in Tel Aviv in Israel in Arabic, or in the Middle East, just because we need someone who can translate what we're talking about a bit better. So that's part of building a global brand, is managing those different cultural nuances and really doing businesses in the language of the people that you're talking to.
Thanks a lot, Tammy. I just wanted you to shed light on cultural nuances and all that stuff to help, people build, global relevant brands. So we're pretty much pressed on time right now. So where can we find you? I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to talk to you more because it was such an engaging session. So where can we find you? How do we reach you? Maybe just touch on that before we close.
Yeah, so the best way to reach me is I'll share my contact details on the screen shortly. But on all social media, it's Tammy Global. So it's THAMI Global. You'll find me on each of those platforms. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to reach out. I'm just there to be a resource, a sounding board. I know a lot of people. I didn't have a person like me guiding me through a lot of these things when I was as a freelancer. Like I told you how I started. I started off doing freelance work as a necessity for me to get the next meal, the next this and that. So it wasn't necessarily something where I could get a sounding board. And so I would like to, talk to you guys about some of this stuff. Here's my contact information. The best way to reach me would be by email. There's also, like I said, Tammy Global on X, on Instagram, or all of these different platforms. Feel free to follow me there and reach out to me and let me know if you have a question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So guys, that brings us to the end. It's 9 p.m. That brings us to the end of this webinar. We're going to record. It's going to be up on the Collabora website. So please do absorb everything that was mentioned in this webinar and just go out there, build global brands, land international clients, and just do the most, guys. So thank you so much, guys. We'll be ending this webinar. Thank you so much to our guest, Thamsanqa. Thank you so much